My name is Claire Ramjan, so I am a lecturer in initial teacher education here at the University of Glasgow within the School of Education. What I'm going to talk to you today is learning for sustainability. So learning for sustainability is the kind of policy context within which children and young people are taken beyond their classroom walls. Previous to this, I was a biology teacher and a geography teacher. I was really inspired to take my children, teenagers for the most part, outdoors to learn about the places that they were in, the concepts that related to biology or geography. And I was really convinced by the reality of being in those places and the way in which the young people were able to take those concepts that they learned in textbooks and apply them in real life and say, this doesn't look the same. This is different. How do we understand this to happen in real life? And that could be related to soils. Soils is a lovely example because they're very different in real life from textbooks. But it could also relate to urban planning or to thinking about how we move around our cities. And so learning for sustainability is a really groundbreaking policy. In the launch in 2012, the One Planet Schools report tried to bring together outdoor learning, sustainable development education, but also global citizenship education. So in bringing those three concepts together, they were really ambitious in promoting a whole school approach to thinking about learning for sustainability. So all school children are entitled to understand and to experience learning for sustainability through their education, but there's also a responsibility from teachers. So all teachers, student teachers, beginning teachers, and experienced teachers have to evidence learning for sustainability through their own practice. It was a really groundbreaking policy and really gave teachers the support to provide this quite challenging set of experiences for their young people, but not prescriptive. So when we talk about learning for sustainability, it's quite an abstract concept. We think about it as being taking learning outdoors or thinking about different cultures around the world, but what does that actually mean in your classroom? As a maths teacher, as a history teacher, that can be very different and quite difficult to practically apply if you're not from an outdoor learning or a biology and geography background. So in 2022, the Scottish Government and Education Scotland looked to refresh the Learning for Sustainability policy. So in thinking in the experiences of the pandemic, but also in thinking about the way that young people have begun to act in relation to the climate crisis or the biodiversity crisis, thinking about those protests that we see young people engaging in and the real kind of rise of thinking about environmental issues in our world with a little bit more urgency. So the refresh of the Learning for Sustainability policy looked to provide more practical support to teachers within schools, but also within initial teacher education as well, so that when teachers are finished their university education, they're feeling a little bit more confident in what Learning for Sustainability might be and what it might look like in their own practice. So instead of those three pillars of outdoor learning, global citizenship education and sustainable development education, it was changed slightly to consider 4 C's. And these 4 C's are really interconnected. So curriculum is the first one. So thinking about how sustainability issues can come through all of our curriculum. So the experiences and outcomes that children are undergoing, but also the assessments that they might have, connecting that to our school communities, both within the school and more widely. Taking that slightly more broadly into cultures, so the relationships and the ethos of the school. Having a social justice approach to understanding cultures more widely that might be represented within the school or not. And again, those sustainability issues that impact on different cultures and different parts of our world in different ways, and the knowledge and the experiences that our young people can bring. And finally, that fourth interconnected C is campus, which really takes the infrastructure of our school environments, so the buildings, but then looking more broadly to the places that the children learn, and that might connect into transport, it might connect to the way in which they access the school, energy and water provision within the school facilities as well, acknowledging that we have a school estate of variable ages and variable conditions. Teacher confidence is a really big part of learning for sustainability. And we know that the benefits of outdoor learning, learning within your communities, taking these cultural approaches to learning can be really meaningful and can be really impactful for our young people. But a recent survey done by NatureScot, who are Scotland's environment agency, found that in teachers, about 2/3 of them were confident in taking learning outdoors, but less than half were confident in taking lessons to do with learning for sustainability. So there's some room there for some improvement in terms of thinking about how confident our teachers can be. When we talk to teachers, the barriers are things like cost, time, health and safety, but fundamentally knowing what to do. Having those ideas, but being able to actually practically implement them with a class of 30 in an urban setting, or a class of 6 of different age groups in a much more rural setting, or finding ways to meaningfully integrate your history or your biology exam components into a learning for sustainability context. One way to do that is through place-responsive education. And place-responsive pedagogies can be really simple things like having a school garden. So while I was at school, the school garden was my responsibility. And it was just such a wonderful opportunity to look at a space within our school grounds and apply lots of different subject areas, lots of different ways of thinking about knowing and knowledge. You can involve numeracy, but you can also apply practical science. But one of the most important things that we did with that garden space was we involved the local community. So we had local allotment volunteers, members of local gardening-based charities, came out, spoke to the children, helped us to do things, helped us to build structures that we wouldn't have been able to do, and opened up the school to the wider community and the wider community to the school. And that was a really powerful way to connect learning for sustainability as a policy through practical activities through a range of different subjects. Another alternative way to think about that would be to take your children outside the school grounds. Often teachers are not local to the school. They come in, they teach their classes and they leave again. They don't necessarily know the local community. So actually walking out with your children, asking them to notice what's happening and think about what are the challenges or the questions or the issues that they might be able to identify within their community. You can then think about how you might want to answer that with your young people, getting them to suggest new approaches or getting them to say, well, we need to find out more about this in order to be able to answer that. Thinking through those local community issues might open up more questions. It might open up more connections and encourage other parts of the community and those cultural aspects to really provide meaningful connections within the local places, the environment and the social life of the young people as well. And so these are just two really simple examples that bring learning for sustainability as a policy context into life in our classroom experiences. Learning for sustainability is a really important policy context that provides support for our teachers to engage our young people with the challenging questions of our world at the moment. So thinking about how to be meaningfully engaged, to act to protect biodiversity, to make change within their communities. So as an initial teacher educator and as a teacher, it is really important for us to be able to support those teachers to engage with this policy context, but in the practical aspects in the classroom settings. Here at the University of Glasgow, we integrate learning for sustainability into all of our initial teacher education programmes. We would be delighted for you to come along and find out more about it.